I honestly believe with all of my heart that I believe that this is a pivotal day. This is a pivotal moment for you. In the next few minutes, this can literally change the course of your life. It can change you from the person that you walked into this room being to a different person when you walk out. And I don't say that cliche-ish, churchy statement. I really believe that with all of my heart, that in the next few moments, I believe that it could change your whole outlook on life. There was a boy, he sat outside the steps of a building with a hat. He was blind. And he set a hat at his feet, and he had a sign in front of him that said, "I am blind, please help." There were a few coins that were being dropped in his hat, but most people just hurried by. They were all busy, all had places to go, and very few coins were dropped into his hat. Well, a man was walking by, and he took a few coins out of his pocket, and he dropped them into this young boy's hat. And then he took the sign from the boy, and he turned it around, and he wrote something on the back of the sign. He turned the sign around where it could be seen, put it back in the boy's hands, and he walked off. And soon, people began to walk by, and they were filling his hat up with change and money. And this happened the whole afternoon. And finally, the man who changed his sign walked back by that afternoon just to check on the boy and see how he was doing. Well, even though the boy was blind, he recognized the steps and the scent of the man who had stopped and taken his sign and written on it. And he asked the man, he said, "Sir, what did you write on my sign?" The man responded, he said, "I only wrote the truth." He said, "I said what you had already said, but I said it in a different way, and I wrote these words, 'Today is a beautiful day, but I can't see it.'" Both signs spoke the truth, but the first sign simply stated that the boy was blind. The second sign conveyed the message to everyone who walked by, how grateful they should be to be able to see. And I thought about our lives when it comes to that. And when our life seems full of trouble and we have difficulties and we have a hard time maintaining an attitude of gratitude, all we see is our problems, and it's kind of like a giant wall or a big mountain in front of us, and that's all we can see is what we're dealing with or what we're going through. And then there's the other times that when everything seems to be going real smooth and we just take those precious moments for granted, don't we, often, that everything's going great and we're comfortable, we're at ease, we're in familiar surroundings and everything's good, everything's wonderful, and we simply forget to be thankful for those times. So this morning, I want to talk a few minutes about gratitude. What is gratitude? You see, gratitude is a choice. Gratitude is a decision that we make. In fact, gratitude is a habit. It's a habit. It's a way of looking at things in our lives and in our worlds, regardless of whether everything's going our way and everything's to our liking. It's a way of looking at things and being grateful for the things that we have. You know, we're always looking for something, aren't we? I mean, you walk into a room, if you're like me, you're looking for the bad. You're looking for everything that's bad or everyone that's bad, or you're looking for everything that's good and everyone that is good. But we will find what we're looking for. It depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for the bad in everything, believe me, you're going to find some bad in everything. If you're looking for the good in everything, then you're going to find some good. Our focus will determine our level of gratitude in our life. If we're looking for bad stuff, you'll see it. If you're looking for the good stuff, you can find it. So my question that I want to start with today is, with all that God has blessed us with. Now, let me just pause right there for just a second. With all that God has blessed us with. Now, you may be here this morning and you go, "Man, my life is crummy right now. My life is awful." The kids, got the marriage or the finances or the job, my life is anything but blessed right now. So let me go back and rephrase this. With all that God has blessed us with. How many of you are breathing this morning? If the person next to you didn't raise your hand, check on them real quick. No. You're breathing. Everyone seems to be clothed today. As far as I know, everyone drove up in something or with someone today. I would dare say probably every person in this room has had something to eat or something to drink today. Oh, yeah, but and we all have that. You're blessed. We are blessed. So with all God has blessed us with, why do you suppose that we don't show more appreciation and gratitude to God and to others? I've run through a few scenarios this morning, and I want to share these with you. Maybe some possible reasons why we don't show more gratitude to God and to others. And one of them is privileged upbringing. We've been pampered and protected. We have unrealistic expectations of life. I think about my grandparents who were part of the Great Depression in that era and were coming out of that. And I think about those who had nothing and did all they could to just survive. And then I think about us today, and our biggest crisis is when the internet's down, or we don't have cell service on our phone. Our biggest crisis is when we're without water for a few hours. And all the people in my neighborhood said, amen. Whenever life is less than perfect, we tend to focus on the negative, and we miss the positive. Simply put, we gripe instead of have gratitude. Another reason that we may not be as grateful and appreciative for all that we have is affluent experiences. These experiences that have set us up not to enjoy the normal stuff. I mean, once you go to an exotic place, once you go to Hawaii or you go to Paris or one of these exquisite places, it's harder to enjoy a state park, isn't it? Once you eat at Captain Anderson's, it's hard to be thankful for Captain D's. Once you've driven a Mercedes, it's hard to be content with a used Pontiac. And please forgive me if you have one. No harm intended. Once your team has won a national championship, it's harder to be grateful for just a winning season. Generally speaking, the more we have, the less grateful we tend to be. A very, very wise man once prayed this prayer, and he said, "Give me neither poverty nor riches. Give me just enough to satisfy my needs. If I grow rich, I may deny you and say, who is God? I don't need God. Man, I've got everything I need." And he goes on and he says, "And if I'm too poor, I may still and thus insult God's holy name." Another reason I feel we're less appreciative and don't show gratitude as much is negative companions. Do you have grumpy friends? Don't look at the person next to you. Just keep your focus up here. But do you have grumpy friends? How do they make you feel? How do you feel when you're around these grumpy friends? Have you ever experienced being around people that are complaining and critical and griping all the time and how they just simply drain the energy out of you? Now, critical and negative people, they will energize each other. You get a group of them together and buddy, they just feed off each other and they just, somehow it seems to energize them. But if you're a positive person, a grateful person, and you're around a negative person, it tends to just drain the life out of you. It tends to pull you down rather than lift you up. But on the flip side of that, if you're around a person who's always grateful and they're always like, yeah, but God is so good, and yeah, God is blessed, and you're around those kind of people, it has a tendency to energize us and to lift us up. So would you rather spend a week with a constant complainer, or would you rather spend a week with someone who is grateful? Suppose you have an Uncle Edward who grumbles all the time. You probably never hear anyone in your family saying, "Oh, could we go to Uncle Eddie's house? I just love to hear him complain." No. You either stay away from Uncle Eddie's house completely or you limit your time around Uncle Eddie. So if you're here today and you go, "My friends and family don't come and visit very often," Proverbs 13:20. Whoever walks with the wise will become wise. Whoever walks with fools will suffer harm. Translated, your friends are going to determine the quality and the direction of your life. If you want it to, then hang around critical, negative people. But if you want to energize your life and take it to another level, gather people around you who are positive, who are grateful, who are encouragers, whose hearts are full of gratitude to God. The Apostle Paul, he no doubt saw this happening in the churches that he worked in, how the complainers tend to gravitate together and how they could bring them down. When he made this comment, we'll get to it in a minute. He said, don't be misled that bad company corrupts good character. Who you rub shoulders with, he said, is going to determine who you become. Another reason we show less gratitude is frequent comparisons. Boy, this one gets us. This gets us. You find yourself constantly comparing yourself and your circumstances and your stuff with someone else. I know no one here does, but you probably know someone who does that, don't you? I do. Well, their kids behave better than ours. Her husband, he's a lot more romantic than my husband. Their house is bigger, newer. They have the latest and the newest version of whatever. They make more money than we do. I found that if we compare our circumstances to others, I become less thankful and I become an unhappy person. And if I cave into this, no matter how much I have, if I cave into this frequent comparison thing, here's what I've discovered. There is always someone who has more than I have. Which means what I have is never going to be enough. The comparison. God warned us in 2 Corinthians 10. He said, when they measure themselves, all about us, when we compare or measure ourselves by ourselves, compare ourselves with ourselves, they are not wise. I love what one writer said. He said, more than any other virtue, gratitude determines the degree of our happiness and contentment in life. So if these are the things that kind of bring us down, if these are the things that kind of keep us from having a grateful heart and expressing our gratitude to God, what are some things that we can do to develop that? What are some things that we can do to maintain a grateful heart? Let me give you just a few. And first one is acknowledge that everything is God's. Everything is God. Everything that you have, everything that you are, everything that we possess, everything is God's. Listen to this. The psalmist wrote, he said, the earth is the Lord's, and help me with this word, everything in it, the world, and help me with this one, and all who live in it. Everything is the Lord's, and everyone is the Lord's. Everything. God loans us things for us to steward for a while we're on this earth, but they are not ours. It's not ours. James said every good, every perfect gift comes down from the Father of heavenly lights. Everything in our life that is good, God says, hey, I've given you that on loan. I've given you that for you to steward and you to use for my glory. We need to acknowledge that everything that we have is God's, and we need to be grateful for what God has entrusted to us. It kind of goes like this. It's His house, He's letting me house sit. It's His car, He lets me drive it. It's His boat, He lets me fish from it and occasionally ski behind it. It's His money, He lets me steward it for His purposes and to bring about good. They're His kids, He can have them back. Whatever that is for you, I don't know. But everything is God's. Everything. That's the first thing. When we grasp this one thing, that everything I have is God's, it changes our whole perspective on our stuff. Second thing is to stay in touch and serve the less fortunate. Stay in touch and serve the less fortunate. I'm so extremely proud of our students, our young adults. Man, they have been serving in our community for weeks now. Going back to the summer, serving in Panama City after the storm, and they've been doing things, just seems like every week they're going out and they're serving. I did something a few weeks ago I've not done in a while, and I went and served in an area that wasn't even a part of our church. It wasn't anything to do with us, and I just went and served, just showed up one day and just served. I left there about 10 foot off the ground when I came home that day. I was like, why don't I do this more often? Why don't I do this on a regular basis? Because it reminds me that we have a good God, and God has blessed me with so much. And He's saying, here, I've blessed you because I want to use you to bless others and serve others. It will cause an attitude shift in you when you serve others. Third thing is, I must earnestly avoid all grumbling and complaining. Wow. If I go back and I read the history, the Old Testament of God's people, Israel, and I read where they were in bondage, they were slaves 400 years. It's all they had ever known was being slaves to the Egyptians. And God finally says, that's enough. I'm raising a deliverer. I'm raising a Moses. And Moses is going to go in there and he's going to set my people free. And Moses goes in and God tells him to command all these plagues, and God sends all these amazing plagues on the Egyptians, and the Israelites are watching this. They're watching how God is just slowly proving the point to them that, hey, I am God, these are my people, and you will let them go. And He's doing all these miracles and these plagues, and then they are delivered. And then they come to a Red Sea, and it parts in front of them, and they walk on dry ground. And then they say, we're hungry, and they're out in the middle of nowhere, and God says, I'm going to send birds to just drop manna to you from heaven, and I'm going to miraculously feed you while you're wandering in the wilderness. And they go, well, we're thirsty. And God says, okay, we're in the desert. Moses, strike a rock, and water comes gushing out of a rock in the desert to quench the thirst of His people. And the soles of their shoes don't even wear out all this traveling they're doing. And they're seeing some amazing things happen, that God is doing miracles. And yet, if you read their story, you find where it's like, oh, great, God, thank you. Now, what have you done for me lately? And they whined, and they complained. On one occasion, when He was feeding them manna every day and making sure they were fed, they made this statement. They said, we miss the fish and melons and cucumbers and onions and garlic that we ate in Egypt. We want more. We're tired of looking at this manna. And the Bible said God had finally had enough, and He struck them with a plague. And a lot of people died. And Paul refers to this over in the New Testament, the book of Corinthians, and he makes this statement. He said, we should learn from the ancient people of Israel. We should learn from Moses' day. First of all, he says, you're to stay away from idolatry and sexual impurity. And then this is what he adds, and this is so unique. He said, and do not grumble, as some of them did who were killed by the destroying angel. I don't know, I just thought it was kind of interesting that he put grumblers in the same circle as idolaters and the sexually impure. And some people may say, well, it's just a minor thing. People are just grumpy. People just grumble. People just have bad attitudes. And I've heard this 100 times. I've heard it once. People say, well, that's just the way I am. I'm sorry. That's just the way I am. No. It's the way you choose to be. In fact, God commands us in Philippians. He said, do everything without complaining or arguing, so that you may become blameless, pure children of God. It's not the way that we are, it's the way we choose to be. So if you developed a habit of complaining, what happened this morning if you were to rewind the tape of your conversations to first thing this morning? How would that play? Or if we were to rewind the tape of conversations to, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to skip Saturday. We're going to jump back to Friday. How about that? Saturday don't count. Everybody gets grace for Saturday. If we jump back to Friday, how would our conversation play out? You find yourself griping more about every little thing or about the same things over and over and over again? Have you realized constant complaining is offensive to God, is a poor testimony to a world that needs Christ? It's a detriment to our personality. Stay away from complainers. Another thing is be accountable. Be accountable to someone. Have them nudge you. Have them clear their throat when you begin to gripe. And I'm sure there's someone right now who would love to help you with this. You may be sitting next to them, I don't know. But someone that could say, hey, you're getting a little heavy on the griping. You're getting a little heavy on the negative. And then the last couple of things is this: express thanks frequently to others. There's an ageless expression that kind of gives direction on how to effectively do this, and that's count your blessings. Acknowledge your blessings. Someone said gratitude is one of those rare things that you get more of by giving it away. I read an excerpt of a book that was really fascinating to me. It was called Simple Act of Gratitude by John Carlick. John Carlick was a successful attorney in a partnership in a law firm. And he tells the story of how his life was falling apart. His marriage was coming apart. His kids wouldn't speak to him. He was in financial debt up to his ears, and things were not going well at the firm that he was working at. And he said this went on, and it was just draining him. And finally, one day, he decided to just go out and take a walk through the mountains of Pasadena. And he said he was walking a trail in the Pasadena mountains, and he said it was like a revelation moment came to him. And he said as he was walking, he felt like he was supposed to write a thank you note. Just a simple thank you note to someone. And he said, but it didn't stop there. It was like something told him, said, you need to write 365 thank you notes. One a day for the next year to the people that you were thankful for, to those who have made an impact in your life, to those who have served you, to those who protect you. He said, write a thank you note every single day, one a day for 365 days. And in his own words, he said, I continued writing these notes until 365 were completed. And then I kept on. I learned to be grateful for the life I had, recognizing the love I had for my children, and for the love I had for my children. It made my life richer than many people that I envied. I learned to be grateful for my law firm, my practice, and for the love of friends and family that surround me. Became thankful for the many people around me who dealt with challenges far greater than the ones facing me with courage and with style. I learned to recognize the many people in my life who had protected and cared for me. And it all stemmed from a simple decision of, I choose to be grateful. I did this with our staff this week. They can tell you that we have taken up the challenge, and not 365. I said, let's just start. Maybe a week, maybe 30 days. Of let's write a card a day and just see, and let's talk about what happens in us in this process of just expressing gratitude to other people. And I'd like to throw that same challenge out to you today. I tell you what, 30 days, some of you say, yeah, 30 days I can tackle that. Why don't we just do 7 days? Why not for the next 7 days, starting today or tomorrow, whenever you can mail it, why don't you take on the challenge of one thank you card a day for the next 7 days? And just say, God, who can I express my gratitude to? Who are the people who have blessed me? Who are the people who have spoken to my life? Who are the people who've invested in me? Who are the people who have loved me? Who's that teacher? Who's that coach? Who's that person that serves me in the community? Who is that family member? Who is the neighbor? Who are the people in my life that I could express gratitude for what they've done and what they mean to me? Express gratitude frequently to others, and then most importantly, express your gratitude to God. We're often more passionate and regular in expressing our concerns to God than we are in our gratitude. And for some of us, the only time we talk to God and express emotion is when we need something, isn't it? Oh, God, please, you got to come through. God, we need you. God, you got to help us. And we get real emotional when it comes to what we need or something that we want. Imagine having a friend or a family member that the only time they were ever passionate and excited was when they were coming to you and saying, we need you. We need some money. We need this or we need that. I wonder how God feels sometimes when I'm going, God, I need, God, would you please, God, can you help, God? And He's going, hey, what about what I've already done? A couple of scriptures, He said, offer praise continually, the fruit of our lips, giving thanks. And then He says, rejoice in the Lord always. Rejoice. Can I tell you something that kind of stepped on my toes this week? I've never understood how I can be so vocal expressing praise for my team and not as vocal in expressing my praise for God. I'll clap, I'll cheer for 11 guys running up and down the field chasing each other, or for someone that steps up to the plate and hits a home run, or somebody that takes that final shot at the buzzer and it goes through the hoop and I go crazy. And when it comes to praising the one who took my place and died on the cross, my hands are still, my arms are limp, and my voice is silent. I think maybe that's what the psalmist meant when he said, let all that I am praise the Lord. With my whole heart I will praise His holy name. So yes, when it comes to giving thanks, when it comes to worshiping the one who died in my place, who forgave my sins, who loves me unconditionally, who gives me grace more than I ever deserve, who has prepared a place for me to spend eternity with Him and with the loved ones that I hold so dear, and the one who says, I will never leave you or forsake you. I'll be with you always. To that one, I can't help but lift my hands and my voice and with all my heart sing, God, you are so good. Father, for